video 4 on learning Python with me, Mr. Baumgarten. Okay, today we are going to be looking at the for loop. The for loop is basically a case of wanting to get Python to run some code a lot of different times, performing different calculations for us automatically, which is of course where the power of computers come from. So for example, if you've got, you're building a computer game maybe, and you might have, say you're building Space Invaders, and so you've got 20 different alien ships all landing on your screen at once, and you need to update the coordinates for all 20 of those ships. You can use a for loop to loop through all 20 of your individual ships and then run whatever commands are necessary to update each individual one's coordinates. Or maybe you've got half a dozen bullets flying on the screen, then you want Python to loop through each and every single one of those bullets so you can update their positions and what they're doing and so on. Or any one of 1,000 different possibilities. But so a for loop is basically something that will allow us to iterate over a sequence of data to perform similar operations. And this is the basic structure in Python. It is for item in sequence. So what does that mean? Let's look at a really simple, quick example. So I've gone into my replit and I've got a blank replit open. Let's take in an input from the user, as we so often do. Type something. Okay, and this time we're just going to keep it as a string. I'm not going to turn it into an integer right now. So it was for item in a sequence. So in this case, I'm going to say for letter in A. Print the letter is letter. And we'll finish off with thanks for visiting. Okay, so what is this code going to do? Basically, whatever I type in is going to get stored into A, that part we're all used to. But what this is now going to say is, let's look through whatever the word or the sentence might be that's in this string A, and for each individual letter, I'm going to store it in a thing called letter. So so think of this as saying for each letter in A. All right, maybe instead of A, let's call it word or phrase. So for each letter in the phrase, I want to run some code, and I indent it, and then the indentation works exactly the same as it does with the ifs. Right? And in the same way, we have a colon here to indicate the end of my, setting up the command for the for loop. And so, even though I am not saying, all right, I'm not doing anything like letter. All right, let's get, say, I don't know, the first letter of the phrase and put it into this thing called letter. That's not what I have to do. The for loop takes care of all of this for me, right? And will automatically start from the first letter and go all the way through to the end letter, updating the contents of the variable called letter each time as we go. Let's write an example to show what I mean. So if I just type in something simple, hello, hit enter. All right, the letter is H, the letter is E, the letter is L, the letter is L, the letter is O, thanks for visiting. All right, so this line here has run 5 times, and every time it has run, it has moved on to the next letter in the phrase, updating the contents of our variable called letter as we go each and every single time. So that's nice and cool. So it allows us to perform something that's fairly, a similar operation, but with different data each time as we go along. So that's how we can iterate through every letter of a string. All right, let's step this up to the next level because while that's handy, what you tend to be finding yourself using more than letters over strings is you'll be iterating through a sequence of numbers. So let's change our input here to now be, let's just clear it all. Let's say I want to print something out, loop through something, do it, or run a piece of code 10 times, right? For number, so after the for loop comes the variable that we want to be automatically updated each time we loop through, all right? And I need to put in my sequence. And it just so happens Python has a special function purpose-built to allow us to create numeric sequences really easily. All right? And that is simply range. So if I put in here, for the number in range 10, the number is number, or num as I'm calling it, all right, and then print the end. Let's see what this does. All right, we have 10 lines of output. All right, so it has run that piece of code 10 times, just like we asked it to. Now, the important catch to be aware of whenever you are learning a programming language is that programming languages start counting at 0. So whenever you ask a programming language to count, expect that the first thing you will get is always going to be a 0. So in this case, I'm asking it to count. Give me a sequence of the first 10 numbers. So it has counted 10 numbers, and it starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is the 10th one, and so it has stopped. Suppose I want to give it a starting number. I can do that. Say I want it to go from 3 onwards. I can now hit play. All right. So now I'm providing 2 parameters of information. I hit run 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. So once again, it has stopped. It stops at the number before your end parameter. Right, so it starts with the beginning value of the first one and ends at the number before the last one. Okay, so do be aware of how this behaves, because that will catch people out. So if we only provide one parameter, it will just treat it as if there's a 0 there for that first one. All right, so just be aware of that. So range 0, 10 is exactly the same as just saying range 10. Okay, it's going to start with the 0 and count up to, but not including the 10. What happens if I want it to go in reverse? Can I count from 0 to -4? And you'll see that we can't, because this is designed to count up. All right, so it'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hang on, we're never going to hit -4. This is not working. And it just bails out and doesn't run. It doesn't generate a sequence for us. And so if I get rid of that 0, if I just had the -4 by itself, it will also behave exactly the same way. I can, however, use my 0 as the first number and count from -4 up to 0. Okay, so keeping in mind again, so it'll start with the value of the first number and count up to, but not including the second number. So we get now -4, -3, -2, -1, but we don't include the 0. If I count from -4 to 1, that will give me a 0. I can count from -4 to 4. Okay, and that is all behaving as I expect. Well, what if I do want it to go count backwards? 0, -1, -2, and so on. There must be a way where I can get it to go from 0 to -4. And it just so happens, of course, that you can. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making a big deal about it. And that is by providing a third command or a third parameter to our function, to the range function. All right, so by default, if there's only the two, it is saying, it is assuming that there is a 1 there for the third argument. And this is saying how much to increase by each time. So count from 0 up to, but not including -4, increasing by 1 each time. And so, of course, that doesn't work because you can't get to -4 from 0 by adding 1. But you can do it by subtracting 1 each time. So count from 0 to -4, subtract 1 each time, and that will run. Again, keep in mind it's up to but not including the -4. So I can make that -5 and we'd get the -4 there. All right. This third parameter can also come in handy for other uses. For instance, if I want to count from 0 to 20 by 2, give me every second number and it will do that. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, up to but not including the 20. What happens if I make this a 1? These numbers no longer match. You can't get up to the 20 from 1, increasing by 2 each time. So it stops at the 19. So the rule still applies. It will count from the 1, increase by 2 each time, up to but not including the 20. So we went up to it, and we didn't go past it because 21 is past 20. So this is a useful little tool that we use to count through a whole range of different numbers. And as with previous exercises, previous videos, there's a bunch of exercises for you to practice on. And because that's really all there is to the for loop. So we had the getting individual letters or characters of a string, and we've got numbers going through ranges. And with that, we can complete our for loop exercises. So if I click on student and go into my classroom, scroll down to chapter 4 exercises, and we've got 4 exercises, all right? The series 1, series 2, and so on. So let's do the first one of these together. Given 2 integers a and b, where a will always be less than or equal to b, print all the numbers from a to b inclusively. So for example, if you provide the number 1 and the number 10, we want it to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, let's take a quick look and see how we might do that. So we will take a is equal to an integer with an input, and b is also an integer that we are receiving from an input. All right. For n for number in the range of a to b, print the number. All right. Now, this is not quite perfect yet, and you can probably figure out why. But when I run this and I type in 1 and 10, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This question is asking us to provide the last number. And the really easy way of doing that, because remember, it will count from A up to but not including B. Well, let's just increase our B by 1. So now if I type in 1 and 10, okay, we get the output that we want, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I submit that for the auto test, yay, we passed. How about we do another quick one together? Once this hurries up. Okay, back to the classroom. Scroll back down to where we are. All right, we did that one. I'll leave that. How about I leave that one for you? 4.3. Let's look at this one. 10 numbers are given in the input. Read them and print their sum. Use as few variables as you can. All right, so I am receiving 10 different numbers being typed in, and I need to add them all up and print their total. So this is where, because I know I'm receiving 10 numbers, I can use right, rather than saying a is equal to int input, right, and then doing, rather than doing this 10 times, right, and maybe I've got a thing called sum, and after each one of these I'm going to say sum is equal to whatever was in sum plus whatever is going to be in A. Right? And this code will work, but it is not efficient. All right, and now is that 10 times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, and then we add that to the total, and then we can print it out. Right, this code will work, and it will even pass the tests, but we're not submitting that because the point of these exercises is to use a for loop. And a for loop means, rather than having to copy and paste this out 10 times, and later on when you're dealing with more complex things, maybe each of the 10 things you've got to tweak slightly, right? It'll get complicated. We've got the same code that we basically want to run 10 times, so let's just do for I for iteration, right? So for the iteration number 1, then iteration number 2, iteration number 3, so just for the 10 times that we're doing it, in range 10. I want to do this 10 times. What do I want to do 10 times? I want to get the input 10 times and add it to my sum. And see, all of a sudden I've gone from about 23 lines of code to 5 lines of code. And if I hit submit on this, it works exactly the same way, because it is going to ask this input, add it to my sum total, come back and ask the input again, add it to my sum total, and so on, and it's going to do that 10 times. You might notice there is a little error popping up here. All right, you can safely ignore that. Built-in sum. Okay, actually, probably shouldn't ignore it. In this case, what it's saying is that the word sum is actually a reserved word. Okay, it's a word that already means something in Python, and so I'm overriding what it normally means in Python. And so if I wanted to actually use the normal Python thing called sum, I would not be able to, because I've overridden it. So I should probably call it something different. Instead of sum, let's call it total. All right, and so then here I will change my thing to say, all right, take my total, which starts out as a 0, add the value A to it, which is what we've received from the input, do this calculation and store it back into total, and then come back in and do the next loop, and we do this 10 times, and after the 10th time we're going to print out our total. And we see we pass all the tests. If I ran it manually, I can just type in 10 numbers. Okay, and it has added them all up for me. Right, so hopefully that has helped. So do all the exercises, and make sure you also add the notes on how the for loop works, both the letters through the string and the different options available to you for the range command, which I think I had a little slide for here. Right. Add all that to your notebook, so you've got your reference materials to go by. All right, thank you for watching. Have a great day.